What if the ships that first breached the Atlantic's vast, silent expanse, their sails catching the trade winds to a world unknown, had flown not the banners of Castile-Aragon but the crimson flag of the Ottoman Sultan? What if the first foreign words spoken on the shores of the Americas were not Spanish but Turkish, and the first foreign faith introduced was not Catholicism but Islam? This single, simple twist of fate, a different set of sails appearing on the horizon, would not just alter the history of one continent, it would fundamentally reshape the entire globe. The world we know today, defined by European colonial legacies, the rise of the West, and interconnected economies, is built upon a sequence that began in 1492. But history is not a straight line, it's a web of possibilities. One thread pulled differently can unravel the pattern we take for granted. To imagine an Ottoman discovery of the Americas is to embark on a thought experiment. In the year 1492, as Christopher Columbus desperately sought patronage from the Spanish monarchs, the Ottoman Empire was not a rising power. It was the undisputed giant of the Mediterranean. Its capital, Constantinople, conquered less than 4 decades earlier, was transformed into Istanbul, a vibrant Islamic metropolis. The Sultan, Bayezid II, ruled from the magnificent Topkapi Palace. Its military was second to none. They were masters of gunpowder technology. The Ottoman Navy, a formidable fleet of galleys and sailing ships, dominated the eastern Mediterranean and the Black Sea. This military might was funded by a sophisticated and efficient bureaucracy that excelled at taxation and resource management. Intellectually and culturally, the Ottoman court was a beacon of the 15th century world. They were skilled cartographers and astronomers, with a deep understanding of geography and navigation. This was not an empire looking inward. It was an empire with a confident expansionist and global worldview, a world of immense ambition, backed by unparalleled resources. This was the world from which an Ottoman voyage to the West could have been launched. Why would an empire that already controlled the center of the world turn its attention to the unknown ocean at its periphery? The Ottoman motivation for a westward voyage across the Atlantic would differ significantly from that of the Spanish. The primary strategic driver would be the burgeoning power of Portugal. This was a direct challenge to the Ottoman monopoly on the overland trade routes that brought the riches of the East to Europe. Sultan Bayezid II and his advisors would have watched this Portuguese flanking maneuver with growing concern. Beyond pure strategy lay the powerful engine of intellectual curiosity. The grand project of mapping the world, of filling in the blank spaces on the globes and portolan charts, would have appealed to the Ottoman spirit of discovery. Finally, the voyage would be framed within a powerful religious and ideological context. The Sultan was the Caliph, charged with extending the Dar al-Islam, and an expedition could be seen as a duty to bring order and learning to new lands. Funding an expedition into the Sea of Darkness would be a monumental undertaking, yet a testament to the empire's wealth and ambition. It would be a scientific mission as much as a commercial one, tasked with charting new stars and documenting new lands. The glory of such a discovery would echo through the ages, cementing the Sultan's legacy as a ruler of global vision. An Ottoman transatlantic expedition would have looked very different from Columbus's 3 humble ships. It would have been imperial in scale, a projection of the Sultan's power. Not caravels but large Ottoman carracks, reinforced for ocean travel. Plus swifter galleys modified for ocean service as scouts and escorts. Not pardoned criminals, but the finest Ottoman sailors, seasoned men from the Aegean and the Black Sea, under a trusted admiral, perhaps Kemal Reis. Meticulously planned, lavishly funded by the imperial treasury, departing not from Istanbul but an Atlantic port, maybe Tangier or a new Ottoman base on Morocco's coast, to catch the Canary Current and the northeasterly trade winds, ships laden with provisions and the tools of empire. Scholars, engineers, and cartographers would be aboard, astrolabe, quadrant, compass, daily prayers on rolling decks. A psychological voyage too, masters of enclosed seas facing the Atlantic with trepidation and faith. After weeks, signs of land, floating branches, strange birds, a different scent. Landfall on Caribbean isles, perhaps the Bahamas or Hispaniola. Anchors dropped in a turquoise bay, crimson banners with the white crescent and star unfurled. Small boats row ashore carrying the admiral, a translator, scholars, and a guard of janissaries. The first meeting on the shores of what the Ottomans would call Yeni Dunya, the New World, a moment of profound and cautious curiosity, not immediate hostility. The local Taino people, emerging from dense green foliage, would behold a sight unlike any they had ever imagined. They would see men with pale skin and darker complexions from across a diverse empire, clad in flowing robes and tall hats. They would see the glint of polished steel from scimitars and the unfamiliar shape of muskets held by janissary guards. The admiral, acting as the Sultan's emissary, would likely begin with gestures of peace and offers of gifts. He would present the local chieftain with a bolt of shimmering silk, a finely inlaid dagger, or a silver mirror. The translator, likely starting with Arabic and trying other known languages, would attempt to establish communication through gestures and shared words. Scholars on the expedition would meticulously document the flora, fauna, customs, language, and beliefs of the Taino. They would describe maize, potatoes, and tobacco with scientific precision, and note gold worn as jewelry by natives. The Taino might be intrigued by Ottoman technology, the power of a musket demonstration, the sharpness of a steel blade, the marvel of woven textiles. The Ottomans would learn planting methods, navigation techniques, and social networks of the islands. A small fortified trading post might be established, more akin to a Portuguese feitoria than a Spanish fortress, a base for further exploration and trade. The Ottoman flag subtly displayed at Outpost, the first foothold of Ottoman influence in the Americas. This initial period would be one of cautious exchange, food, textiles, tools, and knowledge moving both ways. This measured administrative approach would set a very different precedent for the relationship between newcomers and the indigenous peoples of the New World. The long-term cultural and religious impact of an Ottoman presence in the Americas would be one of fusion and synthesis, rather than outright replacement. The Ottomans, with their millet system, were masters of governing multi-religious populations. Mosques would be built, minarets rising alongside traditional temples. The call to prayer would echo through valleys that had only known drums and flutes. Over generations, many indigenous communities would adopt Islam, particularly elites, creating syncretic forms of worship. Islamic geometric art would shape pottery and textile designs. Vibrant native colors would appear in mosque tilework. Arabic script adapted to write Nahuatl and Quechua. Native scholars writing histories and poetry in manuscript workshops. Ottoman science and engineering would introduce wheels, aqueducts, vaulted arches, and metal plows, reshaping agriculture in cities like Tenochtitlan and Cusco. Ottomans would co-opt native elites, forming alliances with the Aztec emperor and the Sapa Inca. These rulers would retain local authority as vassal kings. Local governance would blend Islamic and traditional law, taxes and local courts administered under Ottoman oversight. This system would be far less disruptive than the Spanish encomienda, which effectively enslaved native populations. Allowed to evolve and adapt, many indigenous structures would survive, the result, a vibrant, hybrid Turco-American civilization. Generations would teach new mixtures of language, ritual, and craft, a fusion visible in everyday life. Religious syncretism, artisan exchange, and administrative continuity, a different but sustained cultural path. The Ottoman administration of its American provinces would be methodical and pragmatic, reflecting centuries of imperial experience. Seasoned administrators or beylerbeys would be dispatched to govern, governors tasked with establishing order and ensuring steady tax revenue. Garrisons of janissaries established in key locations, Sipahi cavalry stationed at frontier posts, coastal fortifications and watchtowers to secure the frontiers of the Sultan's domain. The silver mines of Mexico and the gold mines of Peru would be exploited under state control, wealth channeled directly to the Ottoman treasury in Istanbul. That bullion would fund massive public works, shipbuilding, and military strength. New Atlantic routes linked the Caribbean to Alexandria, Istanbul, and the Levant, creating a trade network centered on Istanbul. Persian carpets, Syrian glass, Egyptian textiles, Damascus steel, these luxury goods cross the Atlantic. Horses, cattle, sheep, and wheat are carried to the New World, transforming transport, agriculture, and diet. Ships return laden with maize, potatoes, and tobacco, enriching Ottoman food supplies and creating a population boom. Coffee houses adopt tobacco pipes, new crops diversify diets, native artisans find markets. Overall economic integration alters daily life. West African Atlantic ports under Ottoman governors flourish, linking Africa directly to the Americas. They remain subjects of a distant sultan. Taxes collected, governors appointed, rebellions suppressed, integration with benefits and coercion. Overall, incorporation and managed change, not the catastrophic demographic collapse and cultural annihilation of our timeline. The consequences of an Ottoman-controlled Americas would send seismic shocks around the globe, fundamentally redrawing the geopolitical map. Europe would be most immediately affected, denied the immense wealth of the New World. Flush with American gold and silver, the Sultan could push deeper into Europe, possibly breaking Vienna's gates and marching into the heart of Germany. The Mediterranean would become an Ottoman lake, power tilts eastward, Istanbul, not London or Paris. Ottoman control of Atlantic trade routes and the Silk Roads would create a near-total commerce network centered on Istanbul. Portuguese and other Europeans would be shut out of the spice trade. Trans-Saharan routes decline. West African coastal trade flourishes under Ottoman governance. Rivalries might shift toward an Ottoman versus Eastern power dynamic. Diplomatic negotiation with Ming China, Safavid Persia, Mughal India. The intellectual life of modernity might be rooted in Ottoman Arabic Persian traditions rather than a Europe-centered Enlightenment. North and South America labeled Vilayet-e-Sedid, new provinces of the Ottoman Empire. Power centers shift, diplomacy and science speak Turkish and Persian as leading languages of statecraft and learning. Global wars could be fought over control of the Indian Ocean or Pacific rather than the Atlantic. The Atlantic becomes less central. The entire trajectory of modernity would be altered. Art, politics, and economics reshaped by a different axis of power. A world remade, dramatically different centers, languages and priorities. A new map of human history. By imagining the Ottoman flag on the shores of the Caribbean, we gain a deeper appreciation for the immense power and confidence of the Ottoman Empire, and the contingency of our own past. Our world in 2025 is the product of a specific series of events, of ships turning one way instead of another. Asking what if reveals the fragility of the present. One slight change, one different wind, and history fans into a different set of branches. This exercise in counterfactual history does not judge which world is better, only that the world we know was not inevitable. The slightest change in the wind can alter the destiny of the world.